Hello everyone, and thanks for stumbling upon my video. Over the past couple months, I've been working as a student teacher, and during that time, one of my students expressed an interest in building a guitar. My mentor teacher, who had never made a guitar before, mentioned it to me. I told him that when I was in high school, I actually built two guitars myself. They weren't anything fancy or high-end by any means, but they were built by me from start to finish, and that experience stuck with me. So when the opportunity came up, I let him know I'd be more than willing to help her take on the project. To get things started, I stripped one of my old guitars right down to the basics and used it as a reference. From that guitar, I made a whole series of templates and jigs to help simplify the process and make it more approachable, especially in the school shop setting. Unfortunately, I knew ahead of time that I wouldn't be at the school by the time she reached the later stages of the build. Because of that, I decided to film the entire process. The idea was that these videos could act as a guide, allowing her to continue using the templates and jigs I made, even when I wasn't there in person to help. Now that the videos are edited, I'm uploading them not only for her, but also for anyone else who might be interested in building a guitar, learning some new techniques, or just following along. I hope people can watch, enjoy, and learn from them, and even critique the process. I'm always open to feedback. My student teaching practicum has now come to an end, and I wish her nothing but the best as she finishes building her guitar. I'm really excited to see how it turns out, so please stick around. This will be a short, multi-part series covering the build from start to finish. If you find the videos helpful, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button, and please consider sharing this with all your woodworking friends. It'd be greatly appreciated. Cheers and enjoy. This is a piece of tigerwood. Tigerwood has a beautiful contrast between springwood and summerwood. Springwood grows in the springtime and is often more of a rapid growth, where summerwood would grow in the summertime and it's more of a slower growth. Springwood tends to be lighter in color compared to summerwood. This board will be resawed on the bandsaw, and then it'll hinge in the middle part and it'll open up like a book, giving a mirrored image of the other side. This is often done on guitar faces. Let's start by going over and reviewing some stuff on the jointer. The jointer is used to get a piece of wood perfectly flat. We must ensure the fence is squared to the bed to give us perfectly squared boards after milling on the jointer. It is best to show up to the jointer with pieces that have been cut to rough size, that aren't full boards. If you were going to joint a full length board, to get it perfect would be a little more challenging than a board than, let's say in this case, is 18 inches. So I have the jointer set to take off about a 1/16 of an inch, about 1.5 mm, let's call it. So I begin by marking up the face with a pencil. This will show me any space that the jointer doesn't cut and that isn't perfectly flat. If I can still see the pencil marks, it means the jointer has yet to cut there, and I need to run the piece a second time, possibly even a third. We start by running one face to the jointer to get it perfectly flat, followed by one edge. We put the flat face tight to the fence and we push through an edge to get it tight. We must ensure we keep all fingers and clothes away from the danger zone on the jointer. The danger zone is highlighted in red on the fence and has a red guard on it. We use push sticks on the jointer because wood doesn't bleed. Push sticks keep our hands a safe distance away from the cutter. The cutter on this jointer is about 12 inches wide when the fence is moved all the way over. Once I've jointed the face, I move off to jointing the edge. I'm just jointing one edge. We don't joint both edges because it won't necessarily be cut parallel to one another. Once we have one perfectly flat edge, we can take the piece over to the table saw and make a parallel cut on the other side. To get two faces parallel to one another, we don't use a jointer. We take it over to the planer, and the planer will make the two sides perfectly parallel to one another. Once I have successfully jointed one face and one edge, I like to mark them just with an X, so that when I go over to the next machine, I know what side I have to reference to make my sides perfectly parallel. Now I move off to the table saw to make my two edges parallel to one another. I'm measuring the board because I want to keep as much of the board as possible. So I'm going to look for any checks that the board may have and cut those off. I was lucky and this board had no checks. So I'll just be cutting off enough material to make the two edges parallel to one another. When cutting on the table saw after coming from the jointer, I want to ensure my face that was jointed is flat down on the table and the edge I also made square is tight to the fence. The blade on the table saw here is cranked up all the way. There are many different theories on what is the correct way to use the table saw. Some people like having the blade all the way up for every cut they make, where others like to have about a quarter inch above the thickness of the material they're cutting. Here, I'm going to drop it down to the bottom of the gullet on top of the blade. This will ensure that my sawdust and chips are cleared out by the blade and get sucked away by the dust collector. If the piece you're cutting is smaller than 4 inches, which is about the thickness of a fist, it is best to use a push stick, because once again, wood does not bleed. Here, I do not need to use a push stick. My board will be cut down to about 6 inches, which is plenty of room for my hand to get past the blade. Wood is always under tension, so it's best to use a splitter on the back side of your saw blade. The splitter prevents the back of the wood from squeezing on the blade from all the tension that the wood is under. If this happens, the board could kick back and smack you in the face, or go flying across the shop. I continue to cut all 3 of these boards here. I am ensuring that I push the board completely past the blade. and I don't stop in the middle of my cut. With my left hand, I like to keep a little bit of pressure pushing the board towards the fence. It's more of a guide. You don't have to push hard when doing this. It just helps to guide the board into the blade, ensuring that you're keeping the board tight to the fence at the same time. Alright, off camera, we went ahead and we jointed and planed our material. We are looking to keep our pieces around 19 to 20 millimeters thick, which is about 3/4 of an inch. For this, we're using knotty alder. It is a wood that we've had an abundance of in the shop, and alder is a good wood for making solid body guitars. The only disadvantage of using knotty alder is you have to be careful where your knots and wood defects end up, so proper planning is a must when gluing up this body. To make this easier, we grab our template and we use it to lay out our pieces. We went ahead and marked a cabinet maker's triangle prior to filming on camera. This cabinet maker's triangle is used to do layouts so that you're going from one workstation to workstation, you can remember which layout was the one you wanted. As you can see here, we have a really nasty knots on the corners, but luckily with a little bit of strategy, we can place it so that this will be part of the offcut. We ripped 3 boards down to 7 inches wide, and then we ripped 2 boards down to 3.5 inches. This way, when we're gluing it up, it'll be kind of like Lego blocks. You want a full board in behind the joints. Having this board behind the joints will make the bond a lot stronger. So here's a picture of a stack of Lego blocks. In this image, we have a 2x2 brick on the left, a 4x4 brick in the middle, and another 2x2 brick on the right. Underneath this, we have 2 4x4 bricks side by side. So this is the kind of glue up that we're wanting. It adds a lot of strength to the body, and it'll eventually be capped off with a nice piece of tiger wood on top. And here in this image, you can see that we have some more Lego on top to mimic the tiger wood. This is representing the whole glue up that we are going to be doing when gluing up the guitar body. I jointed and planed all the knotty alder off camera. Once everything was flat and square, I brought it down to the thickness. I laid the boards out and marked them using the cabinet maker's triangle, so I could keep track of orientation and grain direction during the glue up. From there, I moved over to the glue station and glued the slab together. I figured this wasn't a step that really needed to be filmed. There are already a ton of great videos out there to go over the proper panel glue ups, and this process itself is pretty straightforward. The biggest things here are preparation and pressure. Make sure you have lots of cauls ready. Make sure your edges are clean, and don't be shy with the clamps. More clamps are always better than not enough. You want even pressure across the slab so everything pulls together flat and tight. As you can see here, I used a lot of clamps. Every clamp was snugged up evenly, making sure nothing shifted or bowed as pressure was applied. Once everything was aligned and tightened, I left the slab to dry overnight, giving the glue plenty of time to fully cure before moving to the next steps. That's going to wrap up this first video in this series. Thanks so much for tuning in and following along so far. I'll do my best to release a new video every couple days until this guitar build is complete. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and feel free to share it with your woodworking friends. I really appreciate the support. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.